good afternoon everyone, and I'm here again to continue my report about the personalities behind the correctional institution. So, William the Conqueror. So, William was the elder of the two children of Robert the First, of Normandy, and his concubine, Her Herleva, also called or Arlet, the daughter of a tanner or undertaker from the town of Falaise. So sometime after William's birth, Hilby, Herleva was married to Herlion, Viscount of Contevel, by whom bore two sons, including Odo, the future bishop of Bayeux, and the list of one daughter. So William the First, by name William the Conqueror, or William the Bastards, or William of Normandy. So here Prince Ward name is Guillaume le Conquérant, or Guillaume le Batard, or Guillaume de Normandy. So he was born on 1028 Falaise, Normandy. So it was from France. So died from September 9, 1087, Rouen, Duke of Normandy. As William II from 1035, and King of England as William the First. So from 1066 of the greatest soldier and ruler of the Middle Ages, he made himself the mightiest noble in France, and then changed the course of England's histories by his conquest of the country. So next slide. So by 1035, Robert died while returning from a pilgrimage of Jerusalem, and William, his only son, whom he had nominated as his heir before his departure, so was accepted as duke by the Norman magnates and by his overlord, King Henry the First of France. So William and his friends had to overcome numerous obstacles, including William's illegitimacy. So he was generally known as the bastard. So, and the fact that he had accepted as a child his weakness led to a breakdown of authority throughout the Dutch. So private castles were erected. So public power was usurped by Jesuit nobles, and private warfare broke out there. Then William Guardians died violent deaths by he grew up, and his tutor was murdered. So his father, kin, were of little help, since most of them thought that this stood to gain by the boy's death. So his mother, however, managed to protect him through the most dangerous period. These early difficulties probably. So next slide. So from 1046 until 1055, he dealt with a series of baronial rebellions, mostly led by his kinsmen. Occasionally, he was in great danger and had to rely on Henry of France, for help. So, but it was during these years that William learned to fight and rule. A decisive moment came in 1047. So when Henry and William defeated a coalition of Norman rebels as Valais Dons southeast of Caen, so a battle in which William first demonstrated his prowess as a warrior. So William soon learned to control his youthful recklessness. He was also ready to take calculated the risk on campaign and a battle. But but he was not a flamboyant commander. So as a commander, his plans were simple. His methods to direct, and he ruthlessly exploited any opportunity. If he found himself at a disadvantage, he withdrew immediately. So he showed the same qualities as his government. So he never lost sight of his aim to recover lost ducal rights and revenues. So although he developed new theory of government, or great interest in administrative techniques, so he was always prepared to improvise and experiment. So next slide. So although Odo and the other bishops appointed by William were not recognized for their spirituality, they strengthened the church in Normandy by their pious donation, and then administrative skills, presiding over numerous church councils. William and his bishop passed important legislation against simony, the sealing of church offices, and clerical marriage. So he also welcomed foreign monks and scholars to Normandy, including Lanfranc of Pavia. So Pavia, a famous master of the liberal arts, who entered the monastery of B about 1042 and was made about of Caen in 1063. So William involved several monasteries in his Dutch significantly increasing their numbers and introduced by latest currents in returns to Norman monasticism. So next slide. So after 1047, William began to participate in events outside his Dutch. So in support of King Henry and in an attempt of strengthening his southern frontier, so and expanded into western country of Maine. So he fought a series of campaigns against Geoffrey Martel and Count of Anjou. So but from 1052, when Henry and Geoffrey made peace, and a serious rebellion began in eastern Normandy, until 1054, William was again in grave danger. During this period, he conducted important negotiation with his cousin Edward. So the Confessor, King of England, in which he was named heir to the English throne and took a wife. Norman entries with Anglo-Saxon England derived from an alliance made in 1002. So when King Edward II of England married Emma, the sister of Count Richard II, so William, grandfather to two of her sons and William's cousins, once removed, had reigned in turn in England. So Hardy Canute from 1040 to 42 and Edward the Confessor from 1042 to 66. William had met Edward during that prince exile on the continent and may will have given him some support when he returned to England in 1041. And then in that year, Edward was about 36 and William is only 13 years old. So it is clear that William expected some sort of reward from Edward. So thus, when Edward's marriage proved unfruitful, William began to develop an ambition to become his kinsman, Herr Edward. So, whose childlessness was a diplomatic asset probably and times encouraged William's hopes. So next slide. So between 1054 at the council of 1054 and 1060 at the council of Reims in October 10 the emperor's cousin Pope Leo the Ninth condemned the proposed marriage as incestuous, and William and Matilda were eventually related in some way, but William and Baldwin were so eager for the alliance that the wedding took place at the end of 1053. So possibly, so in 1052, so in 1059, William was reconciled to the papacy and was financed. He and Matilda built two monasteries at Caen. So 4 sons were born to the couple, Robert and the Rose and his father's successors in England. So it is possible that William used his new alliance with Flanders to exert an acknowledgement from Edward that William was the English king's rightful. So at all that event, so Edward seems to have made some sort of promises to Williams in 1051, and that year in which Tostig, son of the greatest nobleman in England, Godwine, married Baldwin's half-sister, and then the immediate purpose of his tripartite alliance was to improve her security of each of the parties. So next slide. So after surprising the rebels, William decisively defeated the invading forces of Henry and Geoffrey at the Battle of Mortemer in 1054. So after a second victory at Barville in 1057, the Duke was in firm control of control the Normandy. His position was secured even further when both Henry and Geoffrey died in 1060 and were succeeded by weaker rulers. So finally conquering Maine in 1063. So William became the most powerful ruler in northern France. And then in 1064 or 1065, Edward sent his brother-in-law Harold, Earl of Wessex, Godwin's sons and Edward's eventually successor king on an embassy of Normandy. So, to confirm Edward's recognition of William and his heir, according to Norman sources, while en route, Harold was captured by one of the Duke's vessels. So he was resumed by Williams, who then took the campaign into Brittany. It was at this time, according to the Norman account, that Harold swore an oath in which he renewed Edward's bequest of throne of William and promised to support it. So next slide. So he by August, William took counsel with his leading nobles, so bestowed special authority on his wife Matilda and his son Robert, and appointed key supporters to important position in the ducal administration. So he petitioned the Pope in Rome and received the blessing of Alexander II, who was encouraged by Archidon Hildebrand, the future Pope Gregory VII. So to support the invasion, he also appealed to volunteer to join his army of invasion and won numerous recruits from outside Normandy. So event outside William. Now, however, as other move more quickly, Tostig, Harold exiled brother, raided in England in May but suffered defeat at the hands of one of Harold's allies. So in September, Tostig joined Harold III and King of Norway in the invasion of the Norbrain coast. Although ultimately unsuccessful, Tostig and Harold's attack had significant implication for the success of William's invasion in the south. So next slide. Then William regrouped his forces at Saint Valery on the Somme. So he had suffered costly delay, some naval losses, and a drop in the morale of his troops. The delay, however, yielded a very important benefit for William on September 8, and Harold was forced to release the peasant army he had summoned to defend the southern and eastern coastline. So leaving with them without adequate protection, on September 27, after cold and rainy weather, the wind turned in William's favor. So William embarked his army and set sail for the southern coast of England. So the trip was not without incident. William's ship lost touch with the rest of the fleet. So, but he calmed his crew by supping as if he were at home, and contact with the other ship was made not long after. So the following morning landed, took and resisting towns and began to organize bridges with 4,000 to 7,000 cavalry and infantry. So next slide. So Enrico Ferrere. So, on September 25, Harold had defeated the unslain Tostig and Harold and Stamford Bridge, New York, in a bloody battle with a great losses on both sides. So, and he was retracing his steps to meet the new invader at Hastling on October 13. So, Harold emerged from the fortress, but the hour was too late to push on Hastings, so and he took defensive position instead. So early the next day, before Harold had prepared his exhausted troops for battle, William attacked. The English phalanx, however, held firm against William archers and cavalry. So the failure to break the English lines caused disarray in the Norman army. So next slide. So Ferrere's research led to him postulating theories calling for crime prevention. So prevention methods to the mainstay of law enforcement as opposed to punishment of criminals after their crimes had taken place. He became a founder of the positivist school, and he researched the psychological and social positivism as opposed to the biological positivism of Lombroso. So Ferreri at that time, a radical, was elected to Italian Parliament in 1886. In 1893, he joined the Italian Socialist Party and edited their daily newspaper. So the Avanti in 1900s and 1904, he spoke out in bourgeoisie government. So next slide. So Pereire's research led to his theory of crime and prevention. Then, so Ferreri at that time, so he was elected as Italian Parliament. So Ferreri favored Italian neutrality during World War I, and he was re-elected as Socialist Party deputy in 1921 in post-war Italy. So next slide. So Clifford Road Show. So and Clifford was an American sociologist and criminologist. He was a major figure in the Chicago School of Sociology during 1930s and 1940s. So, and is considered to be one of the most influential figures in American criminology. His work was on juvenile delinquency with Henry D. McKay, so conducted in the late 1920s, so played a pivotal role in moving the study of such delinquency towards the discipline of sociology and away from psychology, so and psychiatry, I mean. Shaw and Mackay's work spanned three general areas: studying geographic variation in rates of juvenile delinquency, and the study of autobiographical works by delinquents, I mean. So the development of Chicago's area project, a delinquency prevention program in the Chicago area, and the two studies published by Shaw and Mackay in the 1930s and 1940s were still held in high regard among social scientists in the 1970s. So next slide. So in 1942, the theory of social disorganization states person, physical and social environments and primarily responsible for the behavioral choices that a person makes at the core of social disorganization theory. So is that location matters when it comes to to predicting illegal activity. Shaw and Mackay noted that neighborhoods with the highest crime rates have at least three common problems. So next slide. Three common problems, and that problems will involve physical dilapidation, poverty, and higher level of ethnic and culture mixing. So Shaw and Mackay claim that the delinquency was not caused at the individual level, but is a normal response by normal individuals to abnormal conditions. So social disorganization theory is widely used as an important predictor of youth violence of crime. So next slide. So the first assumption is the collapse of community base-based controls. So the people living in if these disadvantages, neighborhoods are responding naturally to environmental conditions. The second is the rapid growth of immigrations in urban disadvantaged neighborhoods. And the third is business located closely to the disadvantage of neighborhood that are influenced by the ecological approach of competition and dominance. So, and the last assumption is disadvantage urban neighborhood lead to the development of criminal values that replace normal society values. So, next slide. So, social disorganization theory has received a lot of attention within criminology discipline since the theory was first introduced in 1942. So many studies in US large cities have duplicated the findings of Shaw and Mackay original study. So social disorganization theory studies can help government and law enforcement policy makers make informed decisions from the evidence to form strategies that help prevent criminal activity in disadvantaged communities to make it safer for all. So next slide. So social disorganization theory points to broad social factors as the cause of deviance. A person isn't born a criminal but becomes one over time, often based on factors in his or her social environment. So research into social disorganization theory can greatly influence public policy. So, for instance, studies have found that children from disadvantaged communities who attend preschools programs that teach basic social skill are significantly less likely to engage in criminal activity. So, next slide. And then they found that violence and crime were at their worst in the middle of the city. Gradually decreased the fathers. So someone traveled from the urban center towards the suburbs. Sean and Maki noticed that this pattern matched by migration patterns of Chicago citizens. So new immigrants, many of them poor and lacking knowledge of the English language. So live in neighborhoods inside the city. As the urban population expanded, welfare wealthier people moved to the suburbs and left behind the less privileged. So, Sean and Maki concluded that socioeconomic status correctly correlated to race. The ethnicity resulted in higher crime rate. The mix of culture and values created a smaller society with different ideas of deviance, and those values and ideas were transmitted from generation to the generation. So, so and sociologist Robert Merton agreed that deviance is an inherent part of functioning society, but he expanded on Durkheim's ideas by developing strain theory, which notes and that access to social acceptable goals plays a part in determining whether a person conforms or deviates from birth. Were encouraged to achieve the American dream of financial success. So, a woman who attends business school receives her MBE. So, and goes to make $1 million income as a CEO company is said to be success. However, not everyone in our society stand on equal footing. So, that all of my report about the module 2, and thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Goodbye. God bless.